Hello everyone, and welcome back to MoneyPulsar. Did you know some of the world's wealthiest nations produce mountains of trash every year? We're talking plastic, electronics, household waste, literally tons and tons of it. But instead of dealing with it themselves, a lot of this waste gets packed up and shipped thousands of miles away to other countries. The big question is, why? Why not just recycle it at home? It seems like the obvious solution, right? Well, the real answer is a lot more complicated than you might think. It's not just about being lazy or trying to illegally dump it. This is a massive global system driven by money, complex regulations, and calculated risks. Today, we're going to dive deep and uncover the surprising truth behind why rich countries export their trash. Stay tuned. Have you ever wondered what happens to your trash after you throw it away? You sort it, put it in the bin, and poof, it's gone. But where does it actually go? It might seem strange, but there's a powerful economic reason why some nations choose to ship their waste across the globe. Let's break it down. Managing waste at home is a massive and expensive operation. First, think about landfills. They're not just giant holes in the ground. They require a huge amount of land. That land is valuable and could be used for housing, farming, or parks. Plus, building and maintaining a modern, environmentally safe landfill is a multi-million-dollar investment. It's a bit like real estate, but for garbage, and the price is always going up. Then there's recycling. We all know recycling is good, but it's not free. It involves complex systems of collection trucks, sorting facilities with high-tech machinery, and a large workforce to separate plastics, papers, and metals. All of this costs serious money to set up and run. On top of that, many countries have very strict environmental regulations. These rules are important for protecting public health and nature, but they also add significant costs to waste disposal, requiring special treatments and technologies. So, when you add up the cost of land for landfills, the investment in recycling infrastructure, and the price of following strict environmental laws, managing trash domestically becomes a huge financial burden. This is where the idea of exporting waste comes in. Think of it like outsourcing a difficult and costly task. Shipping trash to another country does have an upfront cost. You have to pay for the transportation, the containers, the fuel. But for some nations, this one-time shipping fee is actually cheaper than the long-term, ongoing expenses of managing that same waste at home. It's a purely economic calculation. They are essentially paying another country to take on the complicated and messy job of dealing with their garbage. But from a purely financial perspective, it's a strategy to save money by outsourcing a very expensive problem. It's a global trade that most of us never see, but it plays a huge role in how the world deals with its ever-growing mountains of waste. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. At first, it seems a little strange, right? Why on earth would any country willingly accept another country's trash? It sounds like a bad deal, but the reality is a lot more complicated. For many nations, this isn't about taking on a burden. It's about seizing an economic opportunity. Believe it or not, there's a lot of value hidden in what we throw away. Think about it. Our waste is packed with resources. Things like plastic, various metals, and components from old electronics can all be extracted, recycled, and then sold on the global market. For countries with the right infrastructure, processing this waste can be a very profitable business. It creates jobs, fuels local industries, and brings in revenue. Of course, not all waste shipments are created equal. Some arrive neatly sorted, making the recycling process smooth and efficient. These are the ideal scenarios, where materials can be quickly recovered and repurposed. However, other shipments are a jumbled mess, a mix of everything you can imagine. This makes processing much more difficult and costly. Sorting through contaminated or mixed waste requires more labor and advanced technology. There's also the environmental cost to consider, as improper handling can lead to pollution. So, why take the risk? For many, the simple answer is that the economic incentive is just too strong to ignore. Even with the challenges, the potential profit from the valuable materials often outweighs the costs and risks involved. It's a high-stakes global trade, where one nation's trash truly becomes another's treasure. But this whole system has some really serious hidden costs, and they're not just financial. For the local communities that end up with all this trash, the consequences can be devastating. We're talking about pollution on a massive scale. Rivers, which are often the lifeblood of a community, can get contaminated with toxic chemicals. The soil that people depend on for farming can become poisoned, making it impossible to grow food. And what about the people who work in these facilities? They're often exposed to hazardous materials day in and day out, with little protection. The countries exporting the waste get to keep their own environments clean, essentially outsourcing their pollution. Meanwhile, the countries receiving it are left to deal with the fallout. It's a system that highlights a huge imbalance of wealth, risk, and responsibility. It really makes you think, doesn't it? So why the big shift? For a long time, wealthy countries had a pretty convenient system. They'd just pack up their plastic and paper waste and ship it off to other nations where it would be sorted and recycled. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, this created a massive global trade in trash. But here's the problem. Not all of it was actually recyclable. A lot of it was contaminated, low quality, or just plain garbage. This started creating huge environmental problems in the countries that were taking it all in. Imagine mountains of foreign plastic waste piling up, polluting the land, rivers, and even the air when it was burned. The local communities and environments were paying a heavy price for other countries' consumption. So, a few years ago, things started to change, and fast. Countries like China, which used to be the world's biggest importer of recyclable waste, suddenly put up a big stop sign. They launched a policy called National Sword, effectively banning the import of most plastics and other materials. It sent a shockwave through the entire global recycling industry. Other Southeast Asian nations like Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand quickly followed suit, saying, "We are not the world's garbage dump." They started sending containers of trash right back to where they came from. This forced the exporting countries, like the United States, Canada, and many in Europe, to face a harsh reality. Their easy fix was gone. Suddenly, they had to deal with their own mountains of waste. Shipping trash abroad became way more expensive and tangled in red tape. The costs for waste management at home skyrocketed. This massive disruption is forcing a much-needed conversation. It's making governments and companies rethink their entire approach to waste. The old model is broken. Now, the focus is shifting towards building better recycling infrastructure at home, reducing the amount of waste we produce in the first place, and designing products that are actually easier to recycle. It's a slow and challenging process, but it's a necessary change for a more sustainable future. This isn't a mistake. It's a massive, global system. It all comes down to economics and regulations. It can actually be cheaper for some developed countries to pay to send their waste thousands of miles away than to process it at home. This creates a whole industry where some profit from what others throw away. It's a powerful example of how invisible systems shape our daily lives, turning a simple act, like taking out the trash, into a complex international transaction. So the next time you see that recycling bin, remember there's a hidden world behind it. What looks simple is never just about trash. If this video helped you understand the hidden logic behind global waste, like, share, and subscribe to Money Pulsar.